In the last session, we saw what is writing. We discussed about the 4 basics of writing: attention, memory, language and motor. These 4 elements play a very important role for a child to write legibly and neatly. If one or more than one area is affected, the child's writing will suffer. In this segment, we are going to discuss about the prerequisites of writing. Eye-hand coordination, also known as hand-eye coordination, is the coordinated movements of the eyes and the hand to perform the writing activity in a coherent way. It is an understanding of what we see and connecting it with the proprioception feedback received by the hands to do the activity in a coordinated way. Proprioception feedback is the tactile feedback which the fingers receive and it is transmitted to the brain. The brain then processes it and sends the signals to the shoulders, arms and the fingers, and these execute the instructions given by the brain. A good example of eye-hand coordination is copying from the board. In the last session, we discussed about the small muscles involved in writing. These muscles need to be matured for the child to write legibly. Now, we are going to talk about upper body strength. Upper body strength involves the muscles of the spine, trunk and the shoulders. If the child has difficulty in any of these muscles, the child's sitting posture would get affected. The child would either want to lie down on the table or the child would complain of pain in the shoulders and the spine. The ability to hold the writing tool is the capacity of the child to hold the pen or pencil correctly. If the child is not able to hold the tool appropriately, the writing would suffer. There is a method of holding the tool. If the writing tool is held too closely or too far away, and if the child gives extra pressure, the writing is going to suffer. It is very important for a child to learn the basic strokes and lines correctly. This needs to be taught as a step-by-step instruction. If the child has not understood the formation of basic strokes and lines, then the writing would be improper and the formation of letters would be different. The orientation of the language determines the direction in which we read and write. Most of the languages are oriented left to right. There are few languages which are oriented right to left. The child must understand the requirement of the language and appropriately use the orientation to write. Yet another essential skill is the skill of midline crossing. This is the ability to spontaneously cross over the midline and perform tasks and activities. Example: sitting cross-legged on the floor and reading left to right. Babies and toddlers would use both their hands to initiate picking up things and interacting with things. By the age of 3 to 4 years, the child's midline crossing should have developed and hand dominance established. If the hand dominance is not established, the child would have various difficulties in performing tasks related to writing. Now, let us take the case of a child who is left-handed. If the child is left dominant from his birth, it is strongly recommended that the hand dominance should not be changed forcefully. Let us understand about bilateral coordination. It is the ability of the body to coordinate both the sides and perform an action in a structured way. For example, holding the paper with one hand and writing with the other. Cutting the paper with one hand while holding the paper with other. If the child has difficulty in bilateral coordination, the child would find it very difficult to perform various tasks like tying shoelace, buttoning a shirt, crawling, etc. Now, we are going to talk about another essential skill called cognitive ability. Now, cognitive ability is the ability to perform any task in a structured way from the simplest to the most complex. For instance, answering a telephone call involves auditory perception, hearing the sound, decision making, whether to pick the call, motor skills to pick the receiver, language skills to understand the language, and social skills interpreting the tone of voice. So, all these skills require cognitive abilities, and these are very important for a child with specific learning disability to write legibly. Now, we are going to discuss about one more essential skill called the visual perceptual skills. It is the ability to organize and understand information and give it a meaning. For easier understanding, let us take a picture. Take a minute and note down what is there in the picture. Now, in one of the pictures, as a teacher, I perceive that there are 6 rods kept, but my child might understand and perceive it as 8 rods. So, perception is basically how each person looks at a thing and gives an image to it. Now, let us take another example of cat. Let us see how children with specific learning disability will perceive the word cat in different forms. Visual perceptual skills include key areas of visual discrimination and visual closure. Now, let us discuss about visual discrimination. Visual discrimination is the ability of the child to differentiate between two objects, two letters given to them. For example, for a child, when a ball and an apple is shown, the child should be able to differentiate between the apple and the ball and identify it correctly. Now, children with specific learning disabilities have difficulty in understanding and perceiving the formation of letters, and hence they have reversals. Reversals of B and D, P and Q happen because the visual perception of the letter formation is very different for children with difficulties. They understand the formation of letters of B as D and D as B. Now, I am going to write the way a child with specific learning disability would write. The child wants to write the letter B, but he is writing the letter D. The child wants to write the letter D, and he or she is writing the letter B. Similar kind of difficulties would be seen with P and Q. We are going to talk about yet another skill which is called as visual closure. Visual closure is the ability of a child to give a complete picture when a part of it is shown. For example, if half an apple is drawn, the child must be able to complete the entire apple and form a picture or an image. Children with specific learning disability would have difficulties in this area. They would not be able to complete their letters, and the letters might look different. For example, a child with specific learning difficulty might write A as it looks like a U. Children with specific learning disability might write O as, since children with specific learning difficulty might have perception difficulties, their formations might be poor and their writing would be very illegible. Now, let us quickly see few activities which are done using commonly available material. While writing on big surfaces, the child does not have to follow boundaries, and it strengthens the muscles of the shoulders, arms and the fingers. By writing on different mediums, the child is able to get different feedbacks, and this helps the child to understand the formation of letters better. Few more activities like crumpling and tearing paper, stringing beads, opening and closing cloth pegs, pounding and manipulating clay would strengthen the muscles involved in writing. Activities like tracing, coloring, copying simple figures and joining dots are very entertaining to the child. At the same time, without the child's knowledge, it helps in strengthening the muscles involved in writing. Activities like using scissors and finger paints, screwing and unscrewing of bottles improve the bilateral coordination in a child. In this segment, we have discussed various activities that would improve the pre-skills of a child to enhance the child's writing.